Hello and welcome to our live Euros videocast with me, Jonny McFarlane, and joining me today from Garmisch-Partenkirchen. I hope I have pronounced that correctly, Matthew. I've been working on that for at least an hour and a half. Decent, okay?
I've been here for 3 days and it's better than I've done.
Well, you are there. I am here in Scotland. I'm not on my way to Germany until Wednesday with a wee stop off in Italy. I'm hoping to get some sun, some pizza, perhaps a Prosecco, and then jump on the train to Munich through the Alps. Hopefully the tunnels won't be flooded. The weather will be great. What are you hearing? Is it going to get better? Because I think it's quite sodden where you are.
Yeah, the forecast isn't particularly good. Having said that, the forecast for today was awful, and it's actually turned out to be quite a nice day. Scotland squad had an open training session this morning, and there was no rain, and it's cleared up today. But I mean, the forecast for the entire duration of the Euros, or the first 2 weeks of the Euros, certainly looks absolutely awful. I mean, we had a sort of incredible thunder and lightning storm last night, and the welcoming ceremony that the mayor and the local dignitaries in Garmisch-Partenkirchen put on had to be delayed. They changed the venue for it twice. So yeah, it's not looking very clever weather-wise.
Yeah, a bit disappointing because I was planning to arrive with a single bag, shorts, T-shirts. I think that has to be rethought now, and it's slightly concerning. But listen, we'll get to that later because there's some pretty interesting news coming out today. There was shrieking headlines, understandably, as Sky Sports went live from the open training session, which you were at, that Andy Robertson had hobbled off with some support, with what looked like a bit of an injury, but he appears to be okay. What happened? What was the commotion like? Describe the scene.
It was just fairly early on in the session, probably 10, 15 minutes into it. We just noticed that Andy Robertson had left the pitch. He'd gone away with a couple of Scotland national team's medical staff who went into the stadium to get treatment. So obviously, that's going to raise eyebrows and get people talking. He reappeared after, 20 minutes, half an hour, and he stood at the side of the pitch with the SFA performance director, Graham Jones, and he didn't look overly distraught. I think it's just them being ultra cautious. I think just at this stage in proceedings, anybody that's got a slight niggle or a knock gets removed from the training pitch so that they don't exacerbate it. And we spoke to John Carver. John Carver did the press conference afterwards, and we had a chat with John, and he confirmed that was the case. There's no issue. He's going to train tomorrow. Ball hit him on the ankle, and rather than asking him to persevere, just as a precautionary measure, they took him off. So, to be honest with you, I think it's just where we're at. 4 days away from Scotland v Germany in Munich. So that they're not taking any chances. Lawrence Shankland was the same. They just. He came off. They just felt that he'd been extensively involved in both the friendlies, and he had a little bit of a niggle, but it's no issue. Kenny McLean and Stuart Armstrong didn't take a full part in the training either, but they're both fine as well. So I just think it's the stage that we're at, and they're just being ultra cautious and not risking anybody.
What's the general mood in the camp like, Matty? There's obviously a sense perhaps amongst the nation that maybe things haven't been going quite as well as we would have hoped in the last 9 games. If you'd gone back to I don't know, maybe the time when Scotland were playing in Spain. Of course, they were defeated in that game, but a great performance out there. They'd won the previous however many internationals to give themselves a perfect opportunity to qualify. Everyone was thinking, good Lord, Scotland are actually getting to a stage where they can compete even against the best nations under Steve Clarke. Since then, you'd have to say it's been slightly on the slide. Now, I know I don't want to be a negative Norman, Matthew. I don't want to go down that route. But, the evidence is that maybe we haven't quite been at the races to the same extent as we once were. Do you get a sense of that in the camp, or is it very, very positive indeed?
No sense of that whatsoever. And I get a very positive vibe off of everyone. And I'll explain why I think that's the case. I think that this 7-game winless run that so much has been made about, so much has been made of. If you look at the opposition during that 7-game winless run, you had four of the teams that are in the top 10 in the FIFA World Rankings. One of which was Spain in the Euro 2024 qualifier, which Scotland were very unlucky not to get a result in. Played very well. Were robbed by a shocking VAR decision, in my opinion. Steve Clarke was keen for his team to play elite nations, so he took friendlies against England, France, and the Netherlands. England and France games weren't great. The Netherlands performance was pretty good despite the result. And then there was 2 dead rubbers in that. There was, the draw with Georgia, the draw with Norway. I genuinely don't think the Northern Ireland game was a shocker. Let's not get away from that. But I genuinely don't think that 7-game winless run has had any kind of detrimental impact on sort of morale or confidence levels. I think there's a sort of realism about it, and I think there's a belief within the squad that when they get down to serious business again, the form that they showed in Euro 2024 qualifying proper will come back. I mean, Gibraltar was a weird game, tiny crowd, empty stadium. I think they have to sharpen up in the final third. And Finland was a weird game as well. I thought they were pretty good. Let it slip in the last 20 minutes, but
I'm going to have to jump in there. Pretty good. I think they were okay for about 10 minutes in the second half.
No, I thought they were fine. I thought they were fine for a training game where guys weren't. I think you have to take into account the fact that it's a friendly X number of days before they play Germany.
Yeah, no one wants to get injured. I agree with you.
Exactly. And, I thought it was like either 5 or 6 changes that Clarke made in the second half. I don't imagine he's going to be taking Billy Gilmore and Andy Robertson off against Germany in order to give Lewis Morgan a run out or to give somebody some game time. So I don't sense that this spell of form that Scotland have been on has impacted on their levels of self-belief at all, and I think we'll see a stark improvement in the Allianz Arena on Friday night.
Well, certainly the self-belief, if it's in good shape, the confidence looked in good shape last night when John McGinn was doing his Bavarian jig. I don't know what the traditional German phraseology is for whatever that was. Perhaps you could throw it out there, Matthew. I'm not sure. I'm not even going to try. But it was very interesting to see your video go across the internet last night and the various videos of John McGinn being pulled in. But that sort of thing must be good for squad morale. It was a bit of a laugh. And it certainly seemed like the town of Garmisch is welcoming Scotland with open arms.
Very, very much so. All those things. I think... I mean, I was speaking to a couple of people in the Scotland camp today, and I wasn't sure whether they had lined up John McGinn to do the dance, or whether they just said, "Look, we're going to do a Bavarian dance, and we want you to join in." But they genuinely didn't know about it. They had no inkling that this was going to happen, and all of a sudden they said, now we're going to do a traditional Bavarian dance for you and we'd like one of you to join in. And they just turned around and grabbed John McGinn. Now, if there's anybody in the Scotland squad that you want to do a Bavarian dance on stage in a beer hall, it's John McGinn, and typically he embraced it. I think as I wrote in my piece in the Herald this morning, I think Scotland have kind of made an immediate impact here. I mean, they got a great welcome last night from the locals who braved the weather. A lot of Tartan Army guys there as well, but there was a lot of locals out, and they did the right thing. They went along and said hello and signed autographs and took selfies and said thanks very much for having us. And I think they charmed the pants off everyone there. I think they're going to be. There's going to be a lot of goodwill towards Scotland, even though they're playing Germany. There's going to be a lot of goodwill towards Scotland in Garmisch-Partenkirchen in the coming days because of what they did.
Yeah, absolutely. 252 people watching us live, which is a cracking start to this Herald Euros special. We'll be doing this every night going forward, right through Scotland's time in the tournament. Hopefully it's going to be longer rather than shorter. Matthew's going to be there for the entirety. You all settled with the wife to be out there for a month, Matthew? We've had a fairly hectic couple of days. We got here on Saturday. There was storms. The plane had to make an emergency landing, and some of the media guys that have come out here have had a horrendous time of it. I mean, Garmisch-Partenkirchen is about an hour outside Munich, and some of the guys that came on Friday, it took them 3.5 hours, and the rail tracks were under 6 feet of water, all settled in. Looking forward to it. Today was good. Lovely spot, beautiful town. Locals were out in force again today at the open training session. I'm in the stadium where Scotland are going to be training is in the shadow of Germany's highest mountain. It's absolutely spectacular. Is that Mount Vank?
No, it is not. No. It is another. It's another mountain, and you're going to ask me to pronounce this, and I've just got Garmisch-Partenkirchen. I've not got around to pronounce Zipzig or something like that. But
thanks to that German beer, and you'll be well on the way to pronouncing it properly, mate.
I've not had any of them yet, so
you're staying off it so far.
Yeah, so far, yeah.
Dreadful. It'll be the first thing I do come Wednesday night. I got straight to the Hofbrauhaus in central Munich for some libations.
Yeah, it's going to be. I think the Tartan Army are going to have a great time. It's a wonderful country, and they're great hosts, and they love the Scots as well, Germans. Yeah, I've been to Munich and Berlin, Matty, and both tremendous cities. Munich is incredible if you like your beer. Every kind of beer imaginable, the Dunkel, the Weissbier, the Lager, it's all terrific. It's all from storied breweries going back years and years and years, hundreds of years in many cases. The only thing I would say, and I don't want to offend any watching Germans, the food, there's a lot of boiled meat and kind of potatoes, and I'm not having that. I love the food as well. Schnitzel, bratwurst. I'm not having that, Johnny. The beer's great and the food's good as well.
Let's put it this way. I'm looking forward to my 5 hours in Verona before I jump on the train to enjoy a pizza, maybe some pasta. Who knows, even a couple of Aperol Spritzes. Those will certainly be high on my agenda. Anyone of the 296 that are now watching, we've just gone past 300. Get in your comments, any questions you've got for myself and Matty regarding Scotland, this camp, who's going to start the game against Germany. We'll be more than happy to answer any of your queries if you fire them in there. In terms of the town itself, Matty, I hear it's 27,000, heavily tourist-orientated town. What's it like in terms of like stuff for the players to do? I mean, are you going to be seeing them wandering around, maybe going for a coffee, or are they very much confined to their quarters in that big hotel that they've got completely booked out?
No, I think they will. I think they will go out and about. It's absolutely delightful little town. It's very picturesque, very quiet, cobblestone streets, and it's not a big town. Everything's kind of within walking distance. So I am sure that the players will nip out and nip into town for a coffee or whatever. I think Scotland's preference was to come to Garmisch-Partenkirchen. They had a few options. UEFA set aside a number of training bases before the draw was made. So it wasn't the only place they could have stayed, but this was the place they wanted to stay, and I can understand why, because it's beautiful. And it's quiet, and it's it's got everything that they need here. So I think the players will really enjoy it.
Yeah, okay. In terms of the team itself, Matty, what are you kind of looking for ahead of this game against Germany? And we know, listen, people say this isn't the best German side, etc., etc. I think you can take that all with a pinch of salt, because Germany have better players in every single position, possibly with the exception of left back, than Scotland. Even then, I think there's probably an argument. Now, the reality is no one expects Scotland to get a result here. None of us feel that Scotland are under pressure. Is that a positive, having Germany in the first game? Because I think it is, I think if I was choosing, you would always want Germany first game or last game, but I think in this group, you want them first game. I think you want to try and catch them on the hop. The pressure's on. It's the first game of the tournament now. It could work both ways. They could be right bang at it. But we've seen often enough in tournament openers over the years, 1990, my first World Cup, the first one I remember, you'll remember it well because you're an old geezer, Cameroon against Argentina. Everyone expected Diego Maradona's Argentina to flatten them, and the Cameroonian team was absolutely tremendous. You remember that team? They were actually a tremendous footballing side, but in that game they just absolutely kicked the Argies off the pitch. And there was also the aspect of 2 red cards, and they still got through that and won 1-0. And then the other one that sticks out to me was Senegal beating France. I think that was Japan 2002. You can correct me if I'm wrong there. I think El Hadj Diouf scored the goal, and that really, really sticks out because France had obviously won the World Cup in 1998. They'd won the Euros in 2000. You're thinking they are absolute bang-on favourites, given the quality they had in that team. And Senegal came out and shocked them. And I think France actually didn't even make it through the group. They never really recovered. Now, listen, Germany will get through this group. There's no doubt about it. But you just wonder if this is Scotland's time. I mean, 1998, Scotland against Brazil, the only probably equivalent game that you can think of in terms of the profile, the pressure that these Scotland players will be under. And I thought Craig Brown's Scotland contributed an awful lot to that game and really gave their all. And it was only a real freak goal that actually gave Brazil the 2-1 win in that one. I think the ball sort of ricocheted off Leighton, ricocheted back off Tom Boyd, could do nothing about it and ended up in the back of the net. Now, listen, it's 30 years ago, Matty. There's no real parallels. I'm spinning a yarn here. The point is just that if you're going up against a big side, maybe it's better to just catch them early.
I completely agree with that. I think if you're in a group with Germany, do you want to play them first, second, or third? You take first all day long. I mean, the great team. I'm not buying this. Not a great team. Not the team that they were. I think they're a great team. They're at home. They'll have the majority of the crowd behind them. Still a lot of pressure on them. Still got to find their feet and find their form. You mentioned a few sort of famous upsets and major tournaments. I think if you look at tournaments we've had recently, look at Qatar 2022. There were a lot of big football nations caught cold there as well, and our early doors. And I think a result. Switzerland and Hungary games are the important ones for Scotland. Let's not get away from it. Any kind of result would be a bonus for Scotland against Germany. But I think we've got this thing. We've always had this thing that we've got no chance. They're so much better than us. They've won World Cups. They've won European Championships, and traditionally that's when we're at our best. It's in the games that we're expected to win and expected to do well that we make a mess of it. It's not very scientific, but you know what I mean. It's traditionally Scotland excel when their chances have been written off. So I don't know. I'm a wee bit worried about right back. I'm a wee bit concerned about Scott McTominay not playing in either of their friendlies. But I think if we can get McGinn and McTominay and Robertson and Gilmore and McGregor really firing, we've got a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it will be difficult, but even if things go wrong against Germany, I suppose the beauty of this tournament, Matthew, is that because 3 teams go through in several of these groups, even if the worst happens and there's a bit of a spanker in that first game, Germany are bang at it in every position. They're up from it from the start. They want to lay a marker down and show what they're capable of. Really, the group is still there for the taking because it's Scotland against 2 teams that are in roughly the same ballpark in terms of the level of quality. Okay, Switzerland might be a little bit better. They might have a little bit more nous and experience, but it's not that big jump in quality. It's a team that's, I would say, in a reasonable vicinity. And Hungary, I would say, are much of a muchness with Scotland. So it's important that people aren't almost like a burst ball if things go wrong in that first game. If they go well, you're absolutely set up. But even if they go wrong, the opportunity is still there absolutely to bounce back. And we know that just a single win is actually potentially enough to send Scotland through. So this could very much go down to that last game. Yeah.
A win and a draw and we're through. Sounds easy, doesn't it?
We browned it in 96.
Just one other point I've got to mention earlier. I'm a little bit concerned about Grant Hanley. I like Grant Hanley. If everyone was fit in the Scotland squad, I'd have him in the middle of a back 3. I think he's the best defender we've got there. He's most dependable. I didn't think he was very good against Finland. I thought he looked like a guy that hadn't played an awful lot of football.
Really ropey.
But he's played in both friendlies against Gibraltar and Finland. That'll have done him the world of good. He knows Steve Clark. Steve Clark knows him. I thought he was poor at times against Finland, so I'm a little bit concerned there. But as I say, one minute I think we can get to the quarterfinals. The next minute I think we'll not get through the knockout round. So I'm kind of up and down with it.
Yeah, I would say, Matty, that I don't think Scotland will get through. I look at the form and I say it's blind optimism to say that they will get through. It's not based on evidence. If Scotland were playing like they were playing in the first 6 games of the group, then you would say absolutely there's much more than blind optimism. There's evidence they can play against teams that are better than them. There's evidence that they can play against teams who are roughly the same. And there's evidence that they can take on worse teams. But I think now you look at the form, you look at some of the injuries. I think the Aaron Hickey and Nathan Patterson slightly destabilises the balance across the 2 sides of the team. It's going to make us very left-sided, and teams will be aware of that, and they will
Yeah, Aaron Hickey is a huge loss because he was so good in qualifying, and I think Tony Ralston really has to step up. Thought he was pretty good against Finland on Friday night, and I think if Scotland are going to go through, Tony Ralston really has to kind of come of age and grasp this opportunity that he's been given. I don't know. I think Hickey was so good. He was so good against Spain. He was so good in all those early qualifying matches. You know, to go back to the point I made earlier, I don't think the 7-game winless run and the performances and results in the friendly will affect their confidence. But do they have the bodies? They're not quite the team that they were in the first 6 games, whatever it was, of qualifying, are they?
No, not at the moment. But I suppose Steve Clarke would look at it and say, well, what you boys are talking about is games that were essentially meaningless.
Yeah.
And Scotland have never, ever, ever in my lifetime, Matthew, been good at meaningless games.
Yeah.
You know, we've always been bad at that kind of getting ourselves up for these kind of events if they don't really matter. So I get that. And that's, I suppose, the second part of my point that I was going to make, which is, while I don't think Scotland will get through because I'm basing it on the evidence that's been in front of us, I absolutely hope I'm wrong with that. I do think this is the best opportunity that Scotland have ever had to get out of a group stage.
Yeah,
you look back at previous groups that we've had, look back a couple of years ago, and you think to yourself, Czech Republic, Croatia, England's obviously a separate game entirely. Take that out of it.
Yeah.
You look at it like you would look at Hungary and you would look at Switzerland. I think Croatia and Czech Republic is more difficult than Switzerland and Hungary. I really do.
Yeah. I also think that another thing that gives me confidence is the fact that was our first finals in 23 years. None of the players had ever been to a finals. There were a weird finals. There were, at Hampden, and there was COVID, and the stadiums were, there was 10,000 people in the stadiums or what have you. But I think that the guys that were there will be, they will benefit from being there hugely. The guys like Gilmore, McGregor, again, McTominay, Tierney, and I think that will be a factor in the next couple of weeks. There won't be rabbits in the headlights. These guys, they'll be comfortable, and I think that is a positive that the Scotland team has. Is that these guys are probably peaking. They're probably McGinn, McTominay. I don't know, Robertson. You know what I mean? They're mature.
These are players.
Players who are playing at a very high level for club and country, domestically and in Europe. So they won't be rabbits in the headlights by any means.
No, I absolutely agree, and I know exactly what you mean there. Andy Robertson. This is the point for him to stand up. The age he's at now, the experience he's got. This is his time. It's the same with Kieran Tierney. These guys in that squad, they're nowhere near their peak yet. I would say like Billy Gilmore's a perfect example of that. Scott McTominay's still a young man. You're probably looking at the World Cup for McTominay, or even the next Euros for those two. But there's other guys in the squad that are definitely getting to that stage now where realistically you have to say there's a almost like they're coming to that point. They're coming to that point where whatever you're taking out of them at this point is probably where at the peak, at the right point. And I suppose for Scotland, it's all about that continual cycle of talent, whereby there's the really experienced guys, there's the guys who are there or thereabouts, and then there's the young players coming through, and we have to have that continuing cycle. But listen, there's so much to talk about. It's fascinating to think about all these 3 games, and very, very different games. And listen, let's not blow everything right now. Let's come back to this tomorrow. We've done half an hour, so it's been great to have you on, Matty. Thank you, and we'll maybe get you back tomorrow to discuss a little bit what's been happening tomorrow. What's on the agenda?
More of the same tomorrow. Another training session. Another press conference. I'm maybe going to go out and speak to some of the German journalists tomorrow, some of the German people, and get their kind of feel for Scotland and the Euros, and see what they're thinking about their chances. So we can maybe have a chat about them. Germany are a interesting proposition with Tony Cruz coming back in. So let's maybe have a look at them and see where we're at tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the key man, isn't he? He's going to make them tick. He's a 6-time Champions League winner? It's certainly five. I think it's 6. And a guy that's just a metronomic presence. The ability to pick a pass out of nowhere, put a ball in over the top, spin one through the defender's legs, and before you know it, the striker's scampering clear. I suppose the one thing that you would say about Germany is that they maybe don't have that striker that you would have feared in the past, a Rudi Voller or an Oliver Bierhoff, one of those guys that you think that's someone that can find 6 or 7 goals in this championship. Maybe Kai Havertz can do that. I think he's a good player. I saw him at Ibrox Rangers against Leverkusen. He's the best player on the pitch, but anyone who watches the Premier League knows that in terms of his time at Chelsea, he flattered to deceive at times. Of course, he scored a pretty important goal, scoring the winner in the Champions League final for Chelsea. But apart from that, I think it's generally recognised that it didn't work out, that move. He's gone to Arsenal, and I think, again, he's a kind of divisive figure. He's not one of those ones that everyone's all in saying he's an absolute world beater. But he's a very clever player, and that false 9 role, he's going to cause problems. I suppose that he brings in their white players who are really pacey, really direct, and have got a goal in them. But listen, we can discuss that tomorrow or in the days ahead. But in the meantime, listen, thank you for joining me, Matty. I'm going to let you go away and get some of those bratwurst that you've clearly been pining for, and perhaps even a pint of Augustiner.
Well, I think it's time. Time I did that. Yeah, okay.
Okay, mate. Thanks for joining, mate.
All right. Cheers, John.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Bye.